Hello and welcome to the Navel Gaze, a podcast about autosexuality. I am Tolly Botts. This is Aaron Terrell, and today we are joined by a wonderful guest, Ashley. Ashley is an autoandrophile from Down Under. You may recognize her from our friend Phil Illy's YouTube channel, where he interviewed Ashley a couple months ago or so. But we were lucky enough to snag her today to tell her story to us and to dive deeper into some of the topics that she and Phil discussed. One of the topics that interests us the most over here is metasexuality. That's one of the main focuses of our show, The Navel Gaze. And so very excited to talk to Ashley about all of that stuff. And without further ado, here's Ashley. You will know that she is so far away from us because you're going to hear a slight lag in the audio. We did our best to remedy this, but it's still there. So bear with us. We're going to do our best to take turns and not speak over each other. But we're doing what we can here. Hello, Ashley.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Sorry about the lag. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Just a disclaimer, if I say anything that I said on my interview with Phil, like if I say the same thing as I said then, even if I say it in the exact same words, that is not me being insincere or an NPC. I'm just autistic, and sometimes I say things in the exact same words, and I have the same thoughts, and I say the same things. Like I get a certain phrase like stuck in my head in a particular way, and I have to say it that way. So I'll try not to do that though, because I know it sounds like I'm just reading off a script. And I guess it is a script, it's just not written down. But yeah, we're going to be talking about meta attraction and yaoi and my past and all that shit.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. That's very relatable what you said. I certainly say things in the same way. We do kind of create little scripts in our head. And I think one of the benefits of talking about things more than once is you're able to streamline your story and your experience and like compact it down into a more digestible form. But it does then start to sound a bit more rehearsed, which in a way it is rehearsed, right? Because you're sharing it over and over again.
Yeah,
but we
exactly.
know that your authenticity is there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, of course. So do you want to get started?
What do you want me to say first?
Let's just kind of dig into who you are, your story, how you first figured out that you are autoandrophilic. Kind of what your earlier life or adolescent, young adult experiences were that led you to this conclusion and how it manifests in your life.
Okay. So who I am and how I figured it out and what my life has been. Well, who I am is a random anonymous autoandrophile on the internet, and I don't have much of a story to tell. I don't think my life has been it's not been much of a story, which is a good thing. What makes a good story is not the same as what makes a good life at all. I'm glad that my life doesn't make a good story. But how did I figure it out? Well, as I said on Phil Illy's channel, I first discovered the concept of autogynephilia through Tumblr. So you can all hear me, right? I'm not you know how lag sometimes completely cuts out some of what you're saying. Yeah. Let me know if that happens. Stop me if that's happening. But yes, Okay, thank you. I don't want because I rewatched my interview with Phil, and there was one particular part near the end where whole chunks of what I was saying were missing. But yeah. I mean, it wasn't so bad. But anyway, yes, I discovered it through Tumblr in the early 2010s. And I was like, holy shit, that's me, but the girl version, you know? I mean, before then I'd already been having some thoughts all my friends becoming trans, and I want to as well, but also I can't be trans because I'm too straight, and that's just not how it works. You got to be gay to be trans. I had some I guess you could say old-fashioned ideas about what being trans meant. I thought that you had to be gay, and I was like, okay, so hold on a second. If you're saying that you're a man, well, most men are straight, they're into women, but you're into men, so that means you're a gay trans man. But gay men are a minority, and trans men are also a tiny minority. So if you're a trans man, that means you're a minority times two, a minority of a minority. And that's like so rare, right? Wouldn't it be so much more like likely that you're just a regular straight woman who's like confused or something? Like, you know, um and I saw I saw all these gay trans men. I was like, like, hold on a second. If trans men are men, then why are so many of them gay? They as a group should resemble men as a group. What gives?
Mm.
um and I was, yeah. Sorry, I got a bit off track there. I was talking about like my life and how I figured out I was AP.
That's really great. I was wondering if you could say what year this was, because you were saying that you had a bunch of friends in like middle school, high school who were also trans. So we're curious to know what year that was and how were they talking about them being trans? Like, how did that come about? What was kind of like the social meme understanding of it? And yeah, and most importantly, like what's the cultural time frame here?
Okay, so my friends and I, we were born like late 2000, early 2001. So we were that high school cohort, the class of 2018. And we were all on Tumblr all the time and obsessed with Tumblr. And like starting from the age of 10, 11-ish, 11. So yeah, that would have been like 2012 when we like were introduced to the wonders of Tumblr. And we started high school in 2013. And the first person in the group to come out as trans did so in the summer break between end of primary school, start of high school. So this is an Australian thing, I guess, but like end of year 6, I should say, start of year 7. Our high school starts in year 7 when everyone's like mostly 12, and in year 6 everyone's mostly 11. And our summer break is like at the end of the year because our seasons are different. So like, our school year lines up with the regular year, and we have a summer break that's longer than the winter break at the end of the year. It makes more sense than whatever you guys have going on.
Christmas in summer is
anyway,
what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes, Christmas in summer. Christmas barbecue.
Cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah. New Year's at the beach. Anyway, first person did that like right before high school was starting, just in time to start going to an all-girls high school. How ironic. And yep. And like in that year, the first year of high school, year 7, that is when other people started coming out. That's when it first started, I believe. It's hard to remember now, it's such a blur. And I was like really like online screen addicted as a teenager, and I'm sure that affects my memory of everything. It kind of puts everything in a screen covered haze. That's something I think about. Another topic I think about a lot is screen addiction and like my own well, that's a whole other thing. But yes, Tumblr, screens, year 7, everyone coming out as trans around me, and I'm like, I want to do this too, but also like they beat me to it. I'm never going to be able to come out as trans with a straight face, like, and be like, hey everyone, I'm trans. Ignore the fact that all my friends have already done this before me. I'm totally not jumping on a bandwagon. Take me seriously, please. Like, there was just no way.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my friends didn't think about that.
Can I just ask? So it seems like you were kind of aware of what we now call Rajdi, and is that what you were thinking was happening with your friends? That it was just one after another as like social exposure, or were you thinking they too have these shameful internal gender feelings like I do?
Well, I thought they must have had the gender feelings, right? Because I mean, it's not like who would become trans just for a trend. Well, I mean,
A lot of girls, I
you
think.
seem to have this idea of like, for me, this is still a puzzle. Like, you seem to have it all figured out. There's ROGD, there's AAP. They're two separate phenomena. But for me, it's more of a puzzle that I still haven't figured out. And I mean, like, I know you've thought about this a lot, and I'm not being like, just coming on here and trying to argue with you or anything. I mean, I would argue with you if I had my own, if I knew very strongly that I disagreed with you, but that's not what's going on. I'm just confused because there are these, these two supposed groups, RGD and AAP groups. They just have so much in common. Like, the way they describe their internal gender feelings and the names that they choose for themselves, like Aiden being the stereotypical example. No hate to any trans guys named Aiden. Honestly, can I just say, if you're a trans guy named Aiden and you're listening to this, I think that's really cool of you because it shows that you either you either became trans like before it was a well-known meme name, which respect, you're one of the OGs, or you just don't care about what people think, which is also really cool. Or you're just you're just living under a rock, which is like not exactly cool, but it is like enviable.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I'm with you. I think there are a lot of questions. I certainly believe that ROGD, or rather ideological transition, that might be like a sharper way to make the distinction between these groups, because I think that they're, especially when we look at the males, but certainly about the females, I think for the males, there's a cohort of younger males who me and Aaron believe to be AGP, to be autogynephilic, who are experiencing a rapid progression of their dysphoria that in a different context, in a different century, in a different society may not have progressed so early to these very severe gender feelings and desire to transition. And so I think it is complicated. I think there are AAPs who could have lived a more typical life, basically, right? Who are being exposed to all of these things and it's progressing them along faster. So I do think it's a little muddier. There do seem to be people who have an ideological transition, right? It's very political for them. It's highly influenced by social justice activism. It's highly influenced by like oppressor and oppressed narratives. So I think that's definitely playing a role, but that could also influence AAPs. Like there are lots of woke social justice AGPs on the internet, right? So the two, they're not mutually exclusive. I do think it's messy, like you're saying, Ashley. I have a question for you. A couple things. One comment, you said that you had some old-fashioned views about trans people, that you had to be gay to be trans. And it's interesting the way that you logicked that felt much more complicated than what I think is why people make this assumption, which is it's like people assume that trans people are the people who are so feminine or so masculine, right? That it kind of makes sense, right? It's sort of like you see a gay person and they were kind of effeminate and you're like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? I could see how that fits. And so we think, oh, a trans person is going to be a super masculine woman or a super feminine man. And we associate those things with homosexuality because that's what the patterns show, right? So I think that's a very logical conclusion to come to. I'm curious, when you say that you learned about AGP on Tumblr and it immediately resonated with you, how was AGP presented? Like, what was it, if you recall, like, how was it defined? What was it presented as? What were you relating to?
Well, this wasn't like a group of self-aware AGPs or sexologists. This was the TERF Tumblr, that is what I stumbled on, and where I learned the idea of AGP, and no one there was like talking about it in a way that sympathized with AGPs or went in depth about the real nitty-gritty. All they were saying was that there's this thing called AGP, it's sexual, it's what's causing all these transitions nowadays, and yeah, it's bad, and these guys are bad. But like they didn't need to go in depth for me to put the pieces together, because I was already having all these emotional experiences, and also seeing my friends around me transition, and like seeing, like, I don't know, random trans women on the internet, and all they needed to say was, there's this thing called AGP, and it means love of yourself as a woman. And that is all. That is the only explanation I needed. Like, someone who wasn't familiar would have needed much more than that. But like, I was able to put the pieces together and, like, you know, see that there was more to it than this caricature that was being put out. Yeah. And I don't like all the AGP hate, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a shame, and it's like, you know, it's what's obscuring the plight of the ROGD boys too. They're like, oh, my son's not AGP. He's autistic. He's a sweet, thoughtful, sensitive boy.
Yeah, right. It's literally like, my son is a good person, so he can't be AGP.
My son's not the evil AGP stereotype. He's the actual AGP profile.
Well put.
That would be a good one to steal and put on Twitter. That would do well.
By all means.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're totally with you. We don't like all the AGP hate either. We don't think it's productive. I've actually been getting a little bit depressed about it lately. Like, I wonder if it's too far gone. There's like so many people that know nothing about it, right? So they haven't been soiled yet by the anti-AGP propaganda, but there are also a lot of people who know a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And it's not good what they do know. And
it's almost like they've known a very little bit for 5 years.
Yes.
And they don't seem to incorporate new information or
some people are just stuck in a rut.
Yeah. And that's what's
they
so
haven't
impressive.
learned, and they don't want to learn. They just want to share like trans cringe memes among themselves, and not like not go out of their comfort zone at all. It's very cringe.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not one to.
Oh, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm not one to like advocate the suppression or censoring of any information at all. But like, just imagine for a second a world where autohet awareness is spreading like wildfire, but only among autohets, our doctors, and our partners. Wouldn't that be great in some ways? Like, I know it's like censorship is bad, but like in some ways that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Normies just don't understand.
Right. And I think there's been this like recent push to make like awareness of AGP some sort of public service announcement of the dangers of AGP. And it's sort of like how to protect yourself, your wife, and your kids from these perverts. It would be great if there was more positive messaging going out to AGPs, to their doctors, their therapists, and their partners. I completely agree. Like you yourself as an autoandrophile and a chaser, a self-identified chaser.
Oh yeah.
You're a great example of the fact, like there are plenty of people out there who are going to be socially, romantically, and sexually interested in autoheterosexuals.
Yes.
And people can live good, fulfilling lives if there wasn't so much stigma and shame and pseudoscientific propaganda going around everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a chaser of ATVs. and like I'm dating an AGP trans woman who is like a chaser of me. So yeah, we're in like a mutual chasing relationship.
I think historically we have seen AAPs and AGPs find each other. They just don't know the language. They don't know what they're doing. Like they naturally gravitate towards one another, and because they do fulfill each other's meta and allo attraction simultaneously.
Yes, that's the
So
secret,
they
both at once.
Yes. So they naturally gravitate toward one another. And also there's that autism thing, right? So there's like these, these ASD traits that are compatible with one another. And so yeah, you just look at all these relationships and you see this pattern over and over again. They just never had the language. And now the language exists, but we're being told, it means that, yeah, you're a evil, dangerous paraphile. When never felt that way, of course. But I am, do you want to go into detail about, your experience of, because you experience meta attraction and allo attraction to AGPs. You also experience, it sounds like, allo attraction to actual just regular old men, and that sounds like that's what kind of can trigger your gender dysphoria. And then you also experience allo meta attraction to just regular women, and that is kind of like a gender euphoria feeling, as if I understand that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, or just
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, that describes my attraction, and I do have that history of like attraction to regular old men, but at this point in time, I don't know if I could ever again date a regular old man. Like, is that I don't know if that's the progression of my sexuality over time, like a ratchet effect, or if it's just a phase that I'm going through and I'll go back to, wanting regular old men later on. But I don't see that happening. I honestly don't want it to happen because it feels like just going backwards, and I don't want to go in circles because it's boring. And I would rather just continue to progress in the AAP direction and date ever more feminine people.
Do you feel like
Well,
suddenly...
I mean, I say that, but like, I don't really want to date more people later. Like, I'm happy in the relationship I'm in now. Also,
Right.
I really hope that she doesn't like stumble on this podcast and recognize my voice. If you're listening to this, Sauce, if
Honey,
if
I
like,
love you.
I can explain, babe. Wait. No, but if she finds this, she'll like let me know, and we'll definitely have a chat about it. Like, I don't know. I'm always like thinking in my head like, is this offensive? And like, oh, of course it's offensive, but is this more offensive than things I've already said to her that she's been totally cool with? Sorry, we're getting on a tangent.
No,
also,
yeah.
not just
Listen,
her. I hope no one I know in real life stumbles on this and is like, "What the hell?"
We have like
maybe
89
maybe they just won't
subscribers.
recognize
So
my
good.
voice. What?
Yeah.
I said we
You're
have like
pretty
89
safe.
subscribers.
89 subscribers. Nice and safe. No offense.
Yes, you're very safe over here. But
Yay.
no, yeah, that's tough, right? To sort of be in the closet this way, including with your partner. I hope you're able to have the conversation one day, because I think I know for my wife and I, just like getting through the conversations is such a relief. And then like, there's just like less secret. You're just kind of more open. And so I think that can be beneficial. I mean, it's also a way to, you said that this information should be spreading amongst the autoheterosexuals and their partners and stuff. And, that's your case, but I'm not trying to pressure you at all. And I understand the very complicated situation that you're in. Especially because when you're dealing with autoheterosexuality, you're trying to balance the other person's dysphoria and like self-concept.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked about it to her in a sense, but she still loves me, and I get I kind of feel like I don't know, something about my views, whatever views, I don't even know, but like they're repellent to trans people always. So if she still loves me, then I must not have explained it fully. Oh well. Whatever happens.
Yeah,
Can't take
and
away
I
the
mean,
enjoyment we've had
listen,
so far.
yeah, exactly. And also it is repellent, right? That's the Alice Drager quote, right? AGP is the love that really wishes you wouldn't say its name. But
Yeah.
obviously
But she
there are
self-identifies as an AGP though.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
That's why I say, like, I've talked about it with her in some capacity. That, like,
Okay.
there are some things that I can talk about with her. Like, she self-identifies as an AGP, but that doesn't mean that she completely has the same understanding of the whole thing as I do of sex and gender and autoheterosexuality and all of this stuff. Like, I do still feel like, you know, I'm a bit tentative with her, but like, it's not like I'm not hiding everything. And honestly, the fact that I believe that AGP simply exists and is real, that's something I would never hide. Like, even with people that I'm sure will disagree, I just can't do it anymore. Like, there are some things I can hide to be diplomatic, but I just can't pretend not to believe that AGP is real. I'm not necessarily calling you an AGP if I say AGP is real in front of you, but I am saying that it's real because I've talked to too many AGPs not to think that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if everyone's identity is valid, then yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think Aaron's face said it all. If she already identifies as AGP, it seems like you're really 90% there. Yeah, okay. So where were we before we took that slight journey?
Meta attraction.
Meta attraction.
Yeah, meta attraction. Such a fascinating topic. Have I talked about...
sorry, that reminded me I had a question for you. Now I remember where we were.
Yes,
so you were saying that your attraction to regular men seems to have decreased, and you're kind of hoping that it'll stay that way. Does it feel like you just find yourself more attracted to trans women? Like, essentially you feel a preference, and so you're making a choice to date non-regular men? Or is there like any type of disgust or dysphoria or anything like that comes up when you think about being with a cis male, as they say?
It's both. Like, I'm drawn to trans women and spend a lot of time with them because I am a chaser. But even if there were no trans women around, I would not, I don't think, necessarily resort to cis men, or if I did, I would have emotional difficulty with them, like always being the girl in the relationship. Like, I've done it before, actually, but I don't know, maybe I've just gotten more AAP or more dysphoric since then. Uh-oh.
Has your meta attraction for regular ladies, have you ever like had a girlfriend, been intimate with a woman, anything like that?
Well, my first relationship was with a woman, if you can call it a relationship. It was an online affair that unfortunately we broke up before we could bring it in real life because she lived across oceans in the United States, and it was quite a short relationship, and she was way too old for me and had a daughter the same age as me. Yeah, I know, right? She was also a heroin addict.
Okay, Ashley, perhaps you dodged a bullet there.
Okay,
yeah,
the next
did.
relationship. Let's go. Let's start there.
Oh man, if anyone I know is listening, they're definitely gonna know it's me now. Sorry, what were we talking about?
You've got a great laugh too. So we're talking. I asked
Thanks.
you if you had relationships with women. So your first kind of online exciting crush relationship was with an older woman with her own issues. Have you had any sexual relationships with females?
Well, here's the thing. I've eaten pussy. In fact, I've eaten multiple pussies. But I've never eaten the same pussy more than once.
Okay.
But I have sucked the same dick more than once. I've sucked several dicks, several times each.
Okay, so these women that it was one time with, because you didn't want to do it again, or it was just the nature of how you met them, the nature of the relationship?
Even though I wasn't repulsed by the experiences, I have to believe that it was a desire thing. Like, you know, a lack of that strong desire to do it again. Not having enough of that desire to really motivate me to want to do it again with either of them. Yeah.
Desire to do it with a novel woman or not necessarily?
I would like well, I'm not like ruling out, you know, any sexual interactions with females in the future. Is that what you're asking?
I'm really just trying to
swearing off them is what I'm
understand it.
saying.
No, yeah, I'm just trying to understand it, right? So it's interesting you said that the idea of being with just like a man, a cis male is feels a bit like just more of a preference for trans women, but also a bit dysphoria inducing. Like you said, it'd be like kind of emotionally difficult to be with a man when you see yourself as a man. I think you said in your interview with Phil that it feels like you and the man would be like competing for your hand.
Yeah. There would be competition. There's competition in any relationship with any kind of male, regardless of like whether that person is a cis man or a trans woman or, you know, any person of the testicle having sex. You know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you mean by competition, though. I don't know what you mean by competition.
Well, competition to be one, masculine, and two, attractive to me. And just competition in like things that you wouldn't think of having, well, maybe you would, but things that like don't jump out at you as being gender related. Like, I don't know, if the other person is like studying something and knows a lot about it, and I don't know anything about anything and I'm a total idiot, which I am, that means I'm losing.
And this feels male specific?
Well, I've never like been with a woman, dated a woman long enough to know what I'm like in such a relationship with a woman.
How about with friends? Do these types of jealousies or competition, does that come up with like male friends?
A bit, yeah. If I'm not sexually attracted to him, that thankfully dampens that feeling of competition. But it's still there.
So, Aaron, you're still not entirely understanding, right, what she means by competition. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I don't understand it. And we don't have to dwell on it. It's fine. It's just like something that came up. But I think it'd be more kind of more important to get into like. So it sounds very much like you are like obviously a chaser. I mean, it's a disparaging word, but you know it makes perfect sense with the way that you've expressed. Yeah, your attraction to men and women is like, the AGPs are obviously going to be the cream of the crop because you get to be the man in the relationship and they have that male anatomy, and so therefore that like romantically it's what you're attracted to and sexually what you're attracted to. So. It sounds like you don't have to worry about that changing. It sounds pretty much like it's going to work for you.
Yes, indeed. Cream of the crop, best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. This might be too personal. You don't have to answer it. And this puts you in further hot water with your partner if she were to ever see this. But I'm wondering like the anatomy of it, right? So an AGP gives you someone who wants to be in that feminine role, who has a male body. So like, are you a GAMP basically? Like, do you need the masculine and the feminine? Would a post-op transsexual, would you still be attracted to her? Hypothetical her?
If she got bottom surgery. Oh,
yeah.
Like any trans woman who'd had bottom surgery.
Right. Like, would you be attracted to a post-op transsexual who,
so
like,
we're
let's say,
asking
who
about bottom
really
surgery.
passes? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've never seen a neo vagina in the flesh. In the future, I might, but I've never seen one, felt one, smelt one. If a trans woman I was already like really into got bottom surgery, I think that would be an interesting test of my sexual orientation. Like, am I just into dick, or am I into the essence of having been born with a dick? And if I am into that essence, what the hell is that essence? Like, like, is it even real, or did I hallucinate it? And if it's real, where is it stored? Where on the body? Where in the behavior? But yeah, no experience with post-op trans women over here. So,
yeah, that essence, I think that is what I was trying to get at, right? Because you have a male preference, right? Because like you said, the cis women, even though you've been with them sexually, you don't feel that like drive to chase them and to pursue them. But you're into men who are into femininity, or males. You know, I'm not.
I'm predominantly into I'm predominantly into, the opposite physical sex to me, males, biological males. I'm not talking about like, gender identity, short hair, and he, him pronouns, anything. I'm talking about, you know what I mean? The reproductive side of it. That is what I'm into. But that does still leave the question of what parts of that are essential to me. How am I defining it? How is my libido defining male? Like, is a flat chest required? Clearly not. Because some trans women, they sure do have boobies, don't they? And yeah, that's hot. So flat chest definitely not required. You can have developed breasts. You also don't need like a masculine face. Like, I mean, the hottest people that I've known have been trans women who've had FFS, but haven't had bottom surgery. So yeah, you can have curves, you can have breasts, you can have a feminine face. Obviously, you can wear women's clothing, and you can have soft, hairless skin. None of those, like, will be a point against you. If anything, they're a point for you. Sometimes I feel my feelings change, but yeah, I don't know how I define male for the purposes of sexual attraction. All I know is that penises seem to be rather important. The ability to impregnate, the fact that you produce sperm. I'm trying to get at it, but I don't know yet, because there are no living examples in my experience of people who were born that sex but don't have dicks anymore. I've never, like I said, I've never even met, I don't think, a post-op trans woman.
It sounds, I mean, it's pretty common experience for the autoheterosexuals to be attracted to androgyny, either like specifically androgyny in males or specifically androgyny in females, or both. So it's, that seems pretty kind of, the standard model, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true.
I know you mentioned to Phil that you are able to partake in sort of like standard run-of-the-mill heterosexuality, and to appreciate that for just like the positive physical sensations that you can experience from penetrative sex.
Yes.
I'm wondering, do you have the experience of, like, in sexual fantasies, are you always a man? Are you always a woman? Does that depend? Does that change? How are you seeing yourself, thinking about yourself when you're having sex? These are really personal questions, sorry, but this is what we talk about here.
I don't like to think about myself when I have sex. When I have sex, usually I'm trying to think more from the other person's perspective than my own. I'm doing things to their body that to elicit a reaction from them. I'm trying to touch them in ways that I think will feel intense for them. And I'm doing that based on what would feel intense on my body. I'm doing things that, you know, I imagine I like map my own nerves and reactions and stuff onto their body, and I touch them in that way. And I want them to react because that reaction is really what's hottest for me. Seeing the person that I love, you know, coming or close to that, or just reacting in that surprised and intense way that people sometimes do during sex. I try to elicit that. But I don't know, I spend not that much time actually just being in my own body and feeling all that stuff myself. I'm in their body or kind of in both of ours. But it's hard for me it's hard for me to completely dissociate from what they must be feeling. And I don't like to think about how I look during sex, especially my face. I don't like to think about my own face during sex. I love to think about the other person's face, look at their face. I don't like to think about my boobs flopping around or how bottom heavy my body is or anything like that.
Sex in a mirror would ruin it for you. It would take you out of the experience in front of a mirror.
Yeah, it would be bad. I mean, I've had sex like in front of a mirror, and I've like looked at the mirror to see the other person, get a better view of the other person, but like kind of cover up my part of the reflection.
I've heard this experience from other autoheterosexuals. I feel like I've heard it from AGPs more, but this idea of like when they're having sex, they can feel what it's like to be the other person, right? So it's like you are feeling what it would be like in a male body.
Yeah,
having
like
sex that you're having.
Yeah. I kind of pride myself on that because I think it makes me a better lover.
Yeah, I think I think there's probably something to that. Would you conceptualize yourself as more of a giver than a receiver, or not necessarily?
In sex maybe. In life definitely not, but in sex,
in sex,
honestly probably. I feel like certainly with oral sex, I give that more often than I receive it, and that is my that's the way I like it. Yeah. So
and
in that way, sure.
Do you not prefer receiving it for the same reasons that you don't prefer kind of being aware of yourself and your body during sex?
That awareness is part of what makes me not want oral sex as often as I otherwise might. But I do get it sometimes, and it feels good physically. Some of it,
right? Like if you can separate the physical sensation from the actual act taking place, then it's good, right? I'm guessing.
I just don't want to be too self-conscious. Also, yeah. Like, you know, when you're getting oral sex, like the top half of your body is cold. I need a blanket or stuffed animal to cuddle while I get it.
Fair. Okay, yeah. So that was helpful. Thank you for answering those questions.
No problem. Like I'm an open book right now. I might come to regret that later, but I'm feeling it right now.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, that Aaron and I are there with you. We've shared more than would be comfortable having any of our friends or family listen to, but you know, hey, that's right.
Oh yeah, and with your faces attached.
With our faces, yes, and our names.
The greater good.
Yeah.
The greater good. You're better than I am. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a certain level of navel gazing going on. Hence the name of the show. But yeah. So I mean, is there anything else? I feel like there's a million more places we could go with metasexuality, and I know that was a focus that I wanted to have for the conversation, but there are other directions that I want to go in with you. But is there anything else that you think we left out? Do you have any profound thoughts about the way that metasexuality shows up between the sexes?
I don't. Well, now you're putting me on the spot for profound thoughts. Just kidding. But I guess my thoughts on meta attraction. I mean, something I think a lot about is non-sexual meta attraction. Have you paid any thought to that? Like, wanting the same things that men want outside the bedroom. Like I've already spoken about this with Phil. Something I've been fixating a lot on lately is psychological sex differences. Like, and I don't know much about them from a formal scientific standpoint, but there's plenty of pop science and pop culture and bullshit out there about them that I latch onto, and some of it seems to reflect my experience and some doesn't, but overall it like really has captured my attention and my thoughts. I spend a lot of time thinking about like, is this thing that I'm thinking or doing more of a femme-brained or male-brained thing to do? And like, okay, so going on a bit of a tangent here about masculinity. I think there are kind of two kinds of it. They're not that different, but they look different in ways. They look quite different, but they're not as different under the surface. There's the first kind of masculinity. It's like the typical what you think of, right? Like the jock masculinity, like the strong, athletic, dominant, winning at life. The Chad, you know, like good at sports, gets all the ladies, good at like whatever it is that he's dedicated himself to. Probably has like a beard and muscles and stuff. You know what I'm thinking. That masculine ideal that people try to be when they're trying to be masculine. That idea. And like if that's like the jock masculinity, then there's also the nerd masculinity, which is like the other kind, which is like not good at sports, but otherwise very recognizably masculine in every like non-athletic way. Like basically autistic. Like when people think about like the extreme male brain theory of autism, and like how autistic guys are just even more masculine than regular guys, except in the fact that they are not good at sports and not interested in it, but they still have those like male kind of thought patterns. The empathizing systemizing theory. Have you heard of that? Whether you
this is
care
why
more
you're
about things or people. So
this is why you don't want your AGP partner to hear this. Because
we'll get to that in this. We'll get to
about
that in a
nerd
sec.
masculinity. They hate that.
We'll get to that in a sec. We'll get to her in a sec if you want, but not too much because I don't want to like invade her privacy. Even though this is completely anonymous, I still, I'm still risking my privacy by doing it because my voice, the sound of my voice is recognizable, and the things I'm saying, and so I don't want to risk her privacy too much because she didn't agree to any of this. But like, getting back to what I was saying about the two kinds of masculinity, the jock kind and the nerd kind. And like the nerd kind, it's like really like affected by testosterone in the womb, like and like this idea I have of like sickly masculinity. Like maybe he's autistic, maybe he's colorblind, maybe he has a stutter, any of those kind of conditions that mainly affect men, and like like obsessed with trains or computers or something like that. I think a lot about that, and it's that kind of masculinity that I kind of like am, I guess, autoandrophilic about. Like, and it's probably because I identify with like, I mean, I am autistic myself, and so I guess like if I'm an autistic woman, then autistic men are my male counterpart, and I like to think of myself as an autistic man and what that would be, and like, can I be more like that? Like, I know it sounds crazy to want to be more like something I just described as sickly, but there you have it.
So
yeah.
is it that you feel a conscious drive to be more like that, or rather you feel this like almost insecurity when you act in these ways that you're like, is this authentic, or is this me striving to be more like?
It's both. I strive and I wonder about the striving. Like, the cost of trying to be something that you can't help thinking maybe you're not is that you'll always wonder, like, have I really earned this? Is it genuine yet?
Mm.
I don't know if I've told like you or Phil this, but like, I've been like doing some research about technical topics, like certain pieces of technology, how they work, certain machines, and like that is influenced by AGP. Well, no, I mean, sorry, AAP. Yeah, I don't want to look. I don't want to say that like the whole reason that I am, like studying IT is because of AAP. It's not. I have other reasons for being interested in computers and technology, and I also don't think that I will necessarily be doing anything computer related forever. I think this is a stop on my journey. The whole computer discussion is another one that that's going to be a real tangent that will get away from anything sexual if I start explaining why I am interested in how computers work in like the non-AAP reasons behind that. That's going to be a whole tangent. I don't want to like torture you with that, but like, yeah, there's that thing. And like, you know, also, my girlfriend is obsessed with trains and has been since she was a little boy, and she like she explains to me like how they work and stuff, and like I don't know anything about them really before I met her, but she's been teaching me the basics and she loves to do it, and I love to learn from her that. And yeah, trains are also a kind of machine and a kind of thing that's associated with men. And computers are associated not just with men, but with a specific kind of men that I'm attracted to. Um, so yeah, yes, yes, machines, autism.
I just appreciate you focusing on like the non-bedroom stuff, because that's what I think is missing so much from the auto-heterosexuality conversation, is everyone wants to focus on the sexual stuff. And I think for especially the females, it's going to be the majority of it is going to be non-sexual. And just like, yeah, an aspiration to be like the other sex, to appear like, to manifest that. And it's not going to feel sexual most of the time. It's going to feel, yeah, sentimental, longing, romantic,
I think for a lot of the males too, and I just want to say that because we got a thoughtful comment on Twitter on our most recent conversation with Phil, sort of appreciating what we were saying about how AGP is not always and pervasively a sexual experience, right? That it is just like how you're living your life day to day, and it's got all these other aspects. I think, I think this is probably largely true for a lot of AGPs too, right? It's influencing all aspects. It's your self-concept. Like you said, it's like all of these things that are so non-sexual. And I think it's interesting that you bring up the sort of like insecurity aspect, if that's not the wrong word, of like questioning, right? Like, is this authentic? Like, when does it become real? And I think to be fair to yourself, that is like part of the human experience, I think, at least. Like we are as social, we're social creatures, and we do a lot of like modeling and mimicking. And so everyone is kind of like, you see things that you think might interest you for whatever reasons they're appealing to you, right? Whether that's driven by your AAP or driven by something else, and you sort of try them on. And if they feel right, then what's not authentic about that, right? I think I hear this a lot from, especially in the metasexuality conversation, when it's talking about like specifically partnered sexuality, this fear that like engaging with metasexuality would somehow be inauthentic, right? It's not your true sexuality, and therefore it's sort of wrong and repressive and inauthentic. Like and I don't see it as being that simple at all. And it's like, if it feels good, if it makes you feel good about yourself, why is that not authentic? Sort of regardless of what got you to that point.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, there's like a huge amount of internal reinforcement towards meta attraction, to the point where like it seems like some people have only had meta attraction their whole lives, like butch lesbians. You know, you talk about butch lesbians being like AAPs minus the, it's like that, like almost like their heterosexuality is latent and they don't feel it consciously. They just have the meta attraction. It's like what an AAP would be. A typical AAP, if you like tone down the alloandrophilia to where it was like not even felt anymore, and turned up the, you know, the attraction to women. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Like, how can you have been like that from birth? Like it's one thing to get that way over time, but to have been that way so long that you don't even know that you have a heterosexual side, and you just are like, yeah, I'm a lesbian, and that's just the way I am and have always been. But you know, if the shoe fits, then yeah, that's how it seems.
I do want to get to the yaoi thing, but we've got to wrap up soon. I want to get to the yaoi thing, but I want to respond to that, because I think
yeah, because you have a time limit, don't you?
Yeah, we're trying to stick to about an hour. It's okay if we go over, but just trying not to. But all
right. Sorry,
when you
I forgot that like this. Yeah.
You were talking with Phil about how, like, when you were a teenager, your sexual, like, you had this really like kind of strong sexual desire, and you were very aware of your sexuality and whatnot. And you're thinking, you know, when I'm no longer a teenager, this will mellow out. I don't actually think that is most females' experience. I think you had like the sudden onset, intense sexuality. I'm not sure like how common or uncommon it is. But I know for me, when I was a teenager, sex was like the last thing on my mind until I was in my, I'd say, late teens, maybe more early 20s, before it was like,
what about
something I thought.
I was very early precocious.
What about age?
Like I was very sexually interested and aware and stuff from, like puberty onset, basically.
Me too. I mean,
okay.
Forget puberty. I've been horny since I was born. It's the truth.
What I'm saying is, I think with how so many of those butch lesbians are able to do that is that their sexuality isn't that strong. It's something that kind of slowly sets in over time based on repeated, you know, experiences and their kind of self-concept of their sexuality. Of their identity, and then that extends to their sexuality. And it's when you give them that jab of testosterone that suddenly they can no longer, suddenly they're very, very aware of their alloandrophilia is when their sex drive is booted way up. But I think mostly what their experience is they've got a low libido. That's how they're able to focus entirely and form their identity around the meta attraction is my hunch here.
Yeah, and I think too, like, because my wife theoretically fits into this category of butch lesbian autoandrophile. And you know, it all feels very like there's a lot of question marks, right? Because it is hard to like say, like, why would someone with this kind of traditional lesbian experience, how does that fit with someone who is sort of so heterosexual that it's inverted, that they, you know, that they want to be the man of their dreams. But I think one way that I kind of conceptualize it is like the alloandrophilia is almost subsumed by the autoheterosexuality. And so like my wife, when I was talking to her, even before we kind of got around to autoandrophilia as an understanding of her experience, when I asked her if she was ever attracted to men, her answer, interestingly, was like, Well, yeah, but like, every time I've seen a really attractive guy, it just turns to jealousy. And like
Yeah.
that was before she had any concept of autoandrophilia or really autogynephilia. And so it feels like it's sort of subsumed. And then for her, that is very much paired with the fact that like being a receptive partner in sex, like sex with a man means that you are the woman, your womanness, your womanly body and figure is on full display in heterosexual sex. And so I think it is this combination of sort of like lower sex drive, and yeah, the alloandrophilia really being subsumed by the autoheterosexuality and this self as man being much stronger than desire for other men. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's how
see.
I've made sense of it, at least.
Right. Well, that's very informative. Thank you. Can't relate. Yeah. So some of my earliest memories are of being horny. Not that I knew that's what it was at the time, but yeah, like, you said you weren't horny as a teenager, Aaron, but I have to ask, what about ages 10 to 13?
No, I think I knew what sex was from about the age of 9, but it wasn't anything that I like thought about, or it was just like this kind of gross thing that adults did that I just had
Wow,
no
holy
like.
shit. I was
Yeah, no,
hornier
I
at
don't.
age 10 than I have ever been. Like,
Yeah,
Wow.
I could not go a minute without thinking about sex at age 10.
I also didn't go through puberty until about 14, 15. I had a very late puberty, so this could also
right.
explain it.
Yeah, I
That's
started
something that's
at
probably
around
very
age 10.
relevant to this conversation, huh?
but
Yeah,
so did
yeah.
your sex drive come on with puberty?
No, it was well, I think that's when I started to get really like intense romantic crushes on on men, but I didn't like fantasize about them sexually or masturbate or anything like that until I was probably like 17, 18, 17, I think. But it wasn't, and again, and it wasn't even something that kind of occupied much of my mind, or it was kind of a rare, few and far between thing. But yeah, I just can't relate to this like horny teenage girls thing. That was just not my experience at all.
Yeah, see, and like I was like into guys. I was going to say men, but really guys, right? Because I was a child, 11, 12 years old. But I was like thirsty to look at naked women on the internet. Like that's what I spent a lot of my time doing. I definitely felt, yeah, like a sexual awakening with the onset of puberty. I got my period at age 11, and that is, I'm not gonna say that's the horniest I ever was. I won't take it as far as that Ashley said, but yeah, I was definitely like very sexually aware and preoccupied from that point on. Probably like, yeah, like 11 to 21. I don't know. And then my like sexual drive, I think, kicked up again when I started like really pursuing women. But yeah, so I relate more to Ashley in that sense. But I've also been told that I'm probably atypical, and so I think Ashley, you and I both may be
Wait,
atypical.
so us female horn dogs are the minority?
I don't know. This is another thing that Aaron and I lament all the time, is that we just don't have enough information. There's really like so little research in terms of sexology on female sexuality, and we don't talk about it. Like I think there is this balance, like Aaron said. It's good that we're talking about the non-sexual aspects of it with you, because I think we make it too much about sex, right? And that stigmatizes the people who have this experience. But with the females, we really don't talk about female sexuality and like what was going on for them. Even when you listen to these transition and detransition stories, their sexuality seems really detached from it. Whether it is or isn't, even like AGPs will tell their story in a way where sex is so detached, even if we don't think that that's necessarily the case. But we just don't, we don't have enough information. So I don't know. Apparently, I think we are probably in the minority. I think we're probably on the end of the bell curve of female sexual drive. I don't still feel that way so much, but yeah, it definitely was like a big part of my life when I was young. Yeah.
That gives
Hopefully
me
more
AAP
people start talking about
validation,
it.
not gonna lie.
That gives you what?
Like AAP validation.
That you're
Male
not like the
brain.
other girls.
Yeah. And then I am like the guys in being obsessed with sex.
All right, tell us about yaoi and why you don't think that AAP and ROGD can be separated so discreetly.
Well, I mean, back in year 7, my friend group was dropping like flies. Like they were all identifying as trans. But before that, I had been to this, like, before that we were in primary school and I had been to the same school as a large chunk of them, and we were all like obsessed with yaoi. We all watched Hetalia and we like to ship the characters. And you know Hetalia, right?
No.
Like this, it's like this anime with like little 5-minute episodes. Huh? It's an anime about countries of the world personified as hot anime boys. And
Okay.
you know, the fandom is very overwhelmingly female and loves to ship them. Or at least it was. I don't know if it has much of a fandom anymore, but like it was all the rage back in the day, early 2010s. And yeah, so I was
shipping,
like,
if
yeah,
we have anyone
shipping,
listening here, yeah.
Oh yes, you go on.
Oh, okay. I'll explain. Yeah. So shipping is where you're taking two characters from some set of media and basically writing a story where they are in a relationship, hence shipping. All right.
Yep.
Carry on.
But yes, I just maybe you're better at this than I am, but personally, I don't know how. When I look at like a trans man or like they fab, AFAB non-binary, I don't know whether to classify them as AAP or ROGD, because like I know this person who, okay, I'm not gonna like gossip about my friends, and that's gonna distract me from my point, but like yeah, I just don't see it. Like maybe if everyone were to be really open about their sexual thoughts and feelings and lay it all out on the table, then we would see who the AAPs were and who the ROGDs were. But I just they if even if they're not the same phenomenon under the surface, they're at least the same enough to share a culture, right?
I guess the argument would be that the ROGDs are taking on a culture, which even there, it's like, how do you all back to what I said before? Everyone's kind of trying things on. AGPs, cross-dressers, are taking on a culture. They feel this desire, and then they go seek out this community or this space or environment where they can do that. I guess. So, do you think that there are ideological transitioners?
I guess the labels shape the culture too. But ideological transitioners, well, my first impulse is that sounds insane. Cutting your tits off to virtue signal sounds insane. But I mean, people do insane things sometimes, so I guess that doesn't rule it out, despite my feeling. Well, are there people who are consciously
body modification religions? It's essentially a new one, I think. Sorry, go on.
Ideological transitions. I mean, okay. I feel like I don't think anyone is doing this consciously as an ideological thing, obviously, because then if they're doing it to feel like they're a good person, they're not going to feel like they're a good person if they're consciously doing it to feel like they're a good person. Like they'll just feel like an imposter. Maybe they are part of communities that tell them that they're like better people for being trans somehow, but well, okay, maybe there are ideological transitioners, but no one's doing it on purpose. Like the ideology doesn't tell you you have to identify as trans now no matter what you feel inside. It just, know, it puts, it says trans people are really great and celebrates them, and then subconsciously that makes you subconsciously elevate feelings in yourself that that you think are trans feelings, you know.
Yeah,
So,
the ideology
sure.
doesn't want you to lie. The ideology doesn't accept people saying, right, like, I'm just going to identify in this way. I think you're right about that. And I think like most people are true believers. So that even calling it an ideological transition is not entirely what I'm trying to get at here. The social contagion aspect plays a role. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like, how could someone cut their tits off to virtue signal? And that probably is oversimplifying it and minimizing the experience, because I agree with you. I don't think they're consciously virtue signaling. It wouldn't feel as good to them if it felt inauthentic in that way. But I do think people can get swept up, right? And we've seen other examples of social contagions. And
I actually have.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
No, please, you go.
I was going to say, I actually have like a short video on my YouTube channel about this question. Oh, and by the way, I do want to say to like the audience, if you're listening to this and if you like it, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I made a channel called Self Straight, but then I got like locked out of it because I forgot the password, sadly. But I'm going to, as soon as this podcast episode is over, I'm going to make a new one called Self Straight 2, which is the same kind of content, and I have a better microphone now. I hope that
Perfect.
I hope you can hear that the audio quality is better, and I hope like it's working and stuff. I didn't do a sound check. But yes, subscribe to Self Straight 2 for more content.
I definitely will.
Thanks. I'll leave a comment on this podcast episode being like, "Hi, it's Self Straight 2. This is what I was talking about."
Perfect.
And we can
Good
link.
idea.
Yeah, we can link in the description.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So where were we? So the distinction basically. So are you inclined to believe then that all female transitioners are AAP, or
No?
Okay.
Well, okay. Are there really that many of us?
Yeah. Well, female transitioners, a shit ton.
No,
AAPs, we don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
Because I'm not a female transitioner. I'm not transitioning at the moment.
Right.
Yeah. Although I did get that testosterone prescription. Oh, but that's another story. I won't spill the beans on that. I'm not on T, as you can hear by my voice.
When did you get the prescription?
A few months ago.
You just haven't filled it?
No, I have filled it, and I've filled it, and I've gotten the T gel, and I've taken some of the T gel, but not enough to really change me.
I would love to talk about that, but we don't have to.
And moreover, oh yeah. Sadly, we don't have time, but we should do this again sometime. Well, okay, maybe we don't have to. I won't torture you anymore. But yeah,
there's so much to talk about.
Yeah. What was I going to say about it?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting into the flow of it. I'm sad to ever have to end this episode at all.
I would love to do a part 2. We could try to do it again. There's a lot more to talk about.
Yes, have me on again, please. If your audience likes me.
If we can sync up the audio, it'll be much smoother conversation as well.
Yes.
I think we should leave it there for now. We can pick up on the Yowie stuff next time and go into more detail.
All right.
Cool. Well, guaranteed part 2.
It,
That's good.
Let leave them wanting more. Part 2 later. We'll pick it up later. Leave on a cliffhanger.
Yep.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ashley.
Cool. Thank you, Ashley.